Texas, the Lone Star State, a land of endless horizons, sprawling ranches, and a pioneer spirit that built an empire from wilderness. But beneath the legend lies darkness. For every tale of triumph, there is a shadow. For every monument to human achievement, there is suffering that refuses to fade. Tonight, we explore 7 haunted locations where history has left its deepest wounds. 7 places where the dead don't rest easy. These are not the stories they teach in history class. These are the ones locals whisper about in the dark. And if you venture to these places, you might understand why. 1. The Myrtles Plantation. Deep in the piney woods sits the Myrtles Plantation, built in 1796. Elegant white columns hide a terrible truth. 10 murders have occurred here. Some say more. The most infamous involves a woman named Sarah, a servant poisoned by the plantation's mistress. With her final breath, Sarah cursed these grounds. She swore she would never leave. She kept her word. Visitors see a woman in a green dress gliding through hallways at night. Guests wake to find mysterious handprints pressed into their skin. Mirrors shatter for no reason. Children's laughter echoes from empty nurseries. In the dead of night, the sound of dragging chains reverberates through the walls. One paranormal investigator documented over 40 supernatural events in a single night before the activity became too violent to continue. Sarah is still waiting for her reckoning. 2. Fort Davis National Historic Site. In the desolate mountains of West Texas sits Fort Davis, an abandoned military outpost built in 1854. Soldiers died here in battle, from disease, and/or circumstances never explained. Their bodies were buried in the fort's cemetery. But their spirits never left their posts. Rangers and visitors encounter full-bodied apparitions of Confederate soldiers patrolling the ruins. One visitor documented a ghostly cavalry unit charging through the courtyard at dusk, vanishing when they passed through a wall. The sound of phantom drumming echoes from the barracks. At midnight, the smell of gunpowder fills corridors where no weapons have been fired in over a century. In the old infirmary, visitors feel overwhelming despair. Some hear agonized moans, pleas for water, the final breaths of dying soldiers. One park ranger came face to face with a transparent soldier in Civil War uniform. When he reached for his radio, the figure faded away. He quit the next morning. Fort Davis is still a garrison. The soldiers are still on duty. 3. Gillioz Theatre. The Gillioz Theatre is a beautiful Art Deco masterpiece from 1926. But beauty masks darkness. A woman named Elvira died here during its early years. Some say she fell. Some say she was pushed. Regardless, she never left. Theater staff report seeing her apparition in the balcony, dressed in 1920s attire, watching performances. During rehearsals, phantom applause rings out from empty seats. The scent of vintage perfume fills the air when no one else is present. Objects move on their own. Props shift between scenes. One actress reported being grabbed by unseen hands during a performance, nearly pulled off stage. A night janitor cleaning the balcony alone heard a woman's voice whisper directly into his ear, "Stay out of my seats." He turned to find empty darkness and ran from the building, never to return. Elvira is still watching. Still waiting for the perfect show point. 4. Horton House. In Brazoria County stand the ruins of Horton House, a plantation manor built in the 1850s. Crumbling walls and a garden choked with weeds are all that remain. But if you listen closely, you can still hear the screams. This was a house of horrors where enslaved people suffered and died. Their blood seeped into the soil. Their voices were silenced but never forgotten. The spirits here are not gentle. They are angry. They demand to be heard. Paranormal investigators report being physically assaulted by unseen forces. Visitors have been shoved, scratched, and hit by objects that appear from nowhere. The air grows thick and suffocating, as if 100 anguished souls are pressing against you at once, screaming without sound. One investigator recorded a chilling voice repeating, "Help us, help us, help us." The desperation in that voice was unbearable. She left the property weeping. The spirits here will not stop until the world knows what happened within those walls. 5. The Ware Hotel. In the small town of Fort Stockton stands the Ware Hotel, a historic establishment that has hosted travelers for generations. Some guests never leave. The hotel is permeated with presences. Guests wake to find a woman sitting at the foot of their bed, staring. Others hear disembodied voices calling their names. The elevator moves on its own. Doors lock and unlock with no explanation. One guest encountered a man in outdated clothing in the hallway who asked, "Are you lost?" Before he could respond, the man faded into darkness. The guest fled immediately. When he asked the front desk about the other guest, staff insisted he was the only one staying in the hotel that night. Staff members refused to enter certain rooms alone. Housekeeping finds beds and made with body impressions, yet no guest checked in. Something watches here. Something waits. And once you check in, some part of you may never leave. 6. Jefferson Hotel in Nacogdoches. In the heart of East Texas, the Jefferson Hotel stands as a monument to the Old South, built in the 1890s. It has also hosted something else that will never check out. Staff and guests report encountering a woman in a white gown who appears in doorways and hallways before vanishing. Her perfume lingers long after she disappears. In the ballroom, phantom waltzes are heard at midnight, the sound of an orchestra playing, of footsteps dancing across the floor. Yet the room remains empty. A guest was awakened by a man standing over his bed, pale and transparent, wearing clothes from another era. The guest's scream brought hotel staff running, but the apparition had vanished. The guest stood rigid with terror, unable to speak for hours. The most disturbing reports come from the basement, where maintenance workers refuse to go alone. They hear voices calling their names, feel hands grabbing at their clothing, and sense a malevolent presence determined to keep them trapped in darkness below. The past does not rest here. It walks the halls and waits in the shadows. 7. Fort Clark Springs. On the edge of Kinney County lies Fort Clark Springs, an abandoned military installation built in 1852 and abandoned in 1946. But the soldiers never left. They are still there, standing guard, patrolling the grounds, unable to accept that the war is over. The barracks are cold, even in the Texas heat. Visitors are followed by unseen presences. Phantom voices call out military commands at night. Full-bodied apparitions of soldiers in uniform have been documented, materializing before dissolving into mist. One visitor captured an image of a soldier standing in full military dress in the courtyard. The problem was no one was there when the photo was taken. He was entirely alone, zoomed in. The soldier's face was visible, his eyes filled with profound sorrow, as if he finally realized his service would never end. Another visitor felt a hand brush against her shoulder, arm, and hair during the tour. When she spun around, she found nothing but empty air. Fort Clark Springs is a place where time stopped, where duty never ends, where soldiers march eternally through a garrison that no longer exists, except in the space between worlds. You've descended into the twisted history of the Myrtles Plantation, where murder echoes through generations, stood in Fort Davis, where phantom soldiers still defend their posts. Witness the theatrical haunting of the Gillioz Theatre, where an audience of one watches eternally. Felt the anguish at Horton House, where centuries of suffering cry out for justice. encountered the guests who never left the Ware Hotel, met the waltzing spirits of the Jefferson Hotel, and watched phantom soldiers march endlessly through Fort Clark Springs. Texas holds stories that most people never want to hear, stories of death and desperation, suffering and sorrow, of spirits too stubborn or too broken to move on. So we ask you, which of these haunted places terrifies you most? Let us know in the comments. If these tales send a chill through your bones, give this video a thumbs up and share it with someone who needs to face their fears. Subscribe to Ghostly Tales and hit that notification bell so you never miss another journey into the darkness. Until next time, keep the lights on and pray you never encounter what walks the shadows of Texas.